expressed our feelings and our passion for these important concepts. I titled it the POW Hymn, and it was for the silver-winged Air Force men and the gold-winged naval aviators. The Citadel Chorale will sing for us at the conclusion of my remarks. The first draft of the hymn was written in prison on a very, very thick and coarse toilet paper that they provided us. It had splinters and sometimes metal in it, just another way to get another Purple Heart. I used a fishbone for a pen, and diarrhea pills and water for ink. My Citadel Band and Bulldog Orchestra training gave me just enough knowledge to do the job. November the 21st, 1970 was a turning point in all of our POW lives. The Sante raid. A U.S. helicopter mission to rescue us at night from a known POW camp, Sante. But no one was there. We were 3 or so miles up the road at a place we called Camp Faith because they were fattening us up, we thought, to come home. But we heard the shooting, the afterburners from fighter escorts, and all of our lights went off. We didn't know what was happening. The next day, we were loaded into trucks and taken at breakneck speed into Wallow Prison in the center of Hanoi, the infamous Hanoi Hilton. Our lifestyle changed immediately. Now we were in large cells of 50 to 55 men. We were now seeing people who prior to this had only been a memorized name, rank, and shoot-down day because we kept up with everything. It was like going into a new neighborhood but with a lot of old friends, and it was great. Fighter pilots are known for their wild escapades. Now, Catherine, you don't know anything about that, I'm sure. They're known for their wild escapades and unbelievable adventures. And so to go from one guy to the next, talk and listen, was just heavenly. I must tell you that the Citadel came up unexpectedly on a visit I had with a notorious Naval Academy grad named Ned Schumann. Now, I must explain something first. Now, my senior year, I ran a variety show that previously had been known as the I.B. Early Show. I.B. was a famous senior private and a great entertainer who later became principal of the largest high school in America. During that time, tradition allowed me, since I.B. had left, to run a risque show, and since I also had the dance band, an hour and a half of bad jokes, bosomy skits, sometimes involving live ladies, and whatever else I could think of, all to entertain the troops. In the very last J.Q. Collins show, I tried to satisfy the Corps' desires. Mistake number one. I showed some what would now be R-rated movies. General Summerall, in his last year as president, found out about it, and the rest is history. But here I am talking to Ned Schumann. He asked, "Where did you go to school, Quincy?" I proudly replied, "The Citadel." Ned kind of cocked his head to one side and smiled and says, "You know, I heard this wild story about a guy who showed some movies, got busted of his rank, and almost didn't graduate. You know anything about that?" "Never heard of it." "Nice talking to you," and I moved on down the line. Being in this large group setting allowed us to do things that were not possible before. We formed a Toastmasters Club. We had classes in French, Spanish, German, and Russian. I taught music and formed a choir. Not only drove the enemy wild, it tore up my own people too. I wrote 4 freshman arrangements, patriotic songs, and hymns that we all knew and loved. We had Christmas programs that were truly sacred for all of us. John McCain, who could tell a movie in Technicolor, we tried against all odds to be as normal as our existence would allow us. Around October, I believe it was, in 1972, we heard a noise we had never heard before. 300 or 400 B-52s flying night weather at 30,000 feet over Hanoi. And their mission? To lay a carpet of 750-pound bombs in and around Hanoi. Sort of like right over there at the stadium. It was deafening. It was frightening, but it was exciting. And every night, for 10 nights in a row, they came. Right on time, as expected. The 11th night, no noise. No jet engines whining. No sounds launching. No anti-aircraft garages. Only silence. And we smiled because we knew it was over. And we were coming home. My first night of capture, I set a goal to be home by Christmas 1965. I spent 8 Christmases in prison. That wasn't a goal. I couldn't do a damn thing about it. So it couldn't be a goal. But later, we all agreed to a goal that we all would strive to achieve. And that goal was to return home with honor. Now that goal was on the shoulders of each of us. Sometimes we would share that burden, but most of the time it was individual and personal and between you and God. To return home with honor caused us to step off those C-141s in the Philippines beginning on February the 12th, 1973, with pride and a gait that I call the step of freedom. On the wall of a cell in the Hanoi Hilton was inscribed this verse: "Freedom has a taste to those who fight and almost die for it, that the protected will never know." My 7.5 years in captivity was the greatest personal growth period in my life. And I know that many of my fellow mates feel the same way. Freedom is not free became a watchword in my life, and I think for all of us. God afforded us this time for deep reflection so that the rest of our life would be different, more focused, and with more purpose. This great institution, the Citadel, gave us the building blocks to survive whatever confronted us in life, be it as a POW, a cancer victim, a heart attack patient, or an MS patient. Whatever the obstacle, if the will is there, progress can be made. Somewhere along the way, these words and the concept they heralded has become part of my life and drives my every action. Listen. To be born in freedom is an accident. To live in freedom is a struggle. But to die in freedom is an obligation. And the Citadel taught us how to meet that obligation. In closing, I want to tell you a story about a guy named Mike Christian, a good Navy job. We got up every morning and we pledged allegiance to a wall, just a concrete wall. Mike said, I'm going to make a flag. Well, it took him about 6 weeks. We gave him materials that we would liberate from the hospital or wherever we might be, that we could get something to give him. And so he was making a flag. He came up with some stuff that didn't look like much of anything, but finally he came up with one that looked like a flag. So we pasted that booger up on the wall and we pledged allegiance to it every morning. And then one day they had a secret inspection, quick inspection, found that flag, went to Mike, pulled him out, and just beat him unmercifully in front of us. And took him in the cell and the next around the corner and tortured him all night. The next day they threw him in front of us. The gate was closed. We couldn't help him. He was just there. We could hear him moaning. We could talk to him. And then they opened the gate and let Mike come in, and we started nursing Mike back to health. His first words were, "Get ready for flag number 2. That's why the flag means so much to us. And this gets to be an emotional situation for us. God help, we do need some emotional passion for our freedom and for the United States of America. And I hope I can make it through this, so hang on with me. Because I'm going to speak to you as the flag of the United States of America, Old Glory. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over great institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am calm. I am resolved. And I am proud. When I'm flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher, my colors a little truer. I am recognized all over the world. I am respected, I am loved, and I am feared. And when attacked, my goal is victory. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. Gettysburg, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Argonne Forest, Anzio, Rome, the beaches of Normandy, Guam, Okinawa, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, in the Persian Gulf, and a score of places long forgotten by all but those who were there. I was there. I led my soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. I followed them, and I watched over them, and they loved me. I was on a small hill in Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired, but my soldiers cheered me, and I was so proud. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on in the streets of countries I have helped set free, but it does not hurt, for at least and at last they are free. I have flown over the rubble in New York City after a dastardly attack on America and the free world, where thousands of my citizens and other nations' citizens perished, and that does hurt. And my miracle men and women in the armed forces who are fighting to free Iraq and Afghanistan from the control of tyrannical dictators who have held their own people as slaves and who sponsor and train terrorists to bring havoc to all freedom-loving people everywhere. The magnificent men and women of our military look up to me as they fight to turn the tide of this ruthless and despicable enemy. But how disheartening and demoralizing it is for my troops to hear the caustic and critical words from those who want and demand immediate success at no cost to anyone. Remember, America, freedom doesn't come overnight, and freedom has a cost. And now our troops are working around the clock to bring order and purpose out of Katrina's attack on our own soil. And I am proud of them as ever over any military victory in our history. But I shall overcome, for I am stronger than the terrorist cowards and dictators who have now sealed their own fate, defeat. And this nation will not remain incapacitated by the forces of nature. Mark my word, we will not fail. I have been a silent witness to all of America's finest hours, and I now long to see us united as never before. But my finest hour comes when I'm torn in strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the field of battle. When I fly at half-mast to honor my soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, firemen, and policemen, and medical workers. And when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the graveside of her fallen son. America, I'm proud to be your flag and your banner for freedom. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave. Dear God, long may I wave.
That great song was written by a Citadel graduate, and I might make a strong recommendation that you might keep that in the repertoire and play it at appropriate times from here on out. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to tell you that I've heard some powerful testimony about duty, patriotism, and service. And I can speak for, I know most of the people, or half the people in this room, I can speak for all of us in this room in saying thank you to those on stage, our friends, our classmates, our alumni, and to all the former prisoners of war, and also to families of those missing in action. All of those folks we forget sometimes, and that's why this flag says, "You are not forgotten." All of them have suffered and sacrificed so much while preserving and protecting our freedom. And I can say on behalf of all here, may I offer our thanks for a job well done under extremely difficult circumstances. Before I conclude, I feel we must on this day also pay tribute to those in some way who are missing. There's over 100,000 Americans from all wars that are unaccounted for. And I have selected 3 to be remembered tonight from this podium and be our representative of all of those missing. Number 1 is Lieutenant J.G. Michael Griffiths, lost over North Vietnam in 1965. His sister, I've come to know, is the Executive Director of the National League of Families. For 27 years, she's dedicated herself to this flag and to that organization and that cause, and her brother is still missing in action. Private First Class Matt Maupin, lost 9 April 2004, United States Army, Iraq. He's either missing in action or a prisoner of war. We don't know. Please have him remembered in your prayers. And last of all, one of our Citadel alumni, Lieutenant Carter Howell, lost over Laos 7 March 1972 in an F-4. He remains unaccounted for. Citadel class of 1969.